Alright, we are back right where we left off. So let's look at how to program the keyboard to tell it when you press a button, maybe you want it to move the object across the screen, which we have learned how to do. So let's start this program first. First thing we want to do is start it. Next thing, we're going to need a forever loop because we're wanting it to continuously act upon we want it to continuously being able to see whether or not you're pressing a key or not. Otherwise, it's not going to do anything. So let's also drag an if-then statement. And let's take a look at sensing. This is where we're going to be using and finding the blocks we need. And you use this key blank pressed. So if we're using the arrow keys, say we want it to this cat, or let's just use this right here. Oh, and I wasn't thinking because I was programming under the cat sprite object, not the circle. So you do have to individually program each sprite. You can also drag over to a different sprite, which will allows you to easily copy and paste over to different sprites if you're running the same type of coding. So when the up arrow is clicked, we want it to, under motions, we want it to change the Y value by +10, so that when we run this, we can press the up arrow and it will change the Y value by 10. But also, what if we want it to, maybe we want it to go up and down. So let's drag another if-then statement and another key. And let's tell it if the down arrow, again, we want it to change the Y. But instead of 10, we want it to be -10. So that when I press the up arrow, it changes it by +10. And when I press the down arrow, it changes it by -10. So what about side? Moving side to side. Let's drag two more if-then statements and two more sensing blocks. And let's say right arrow and left arrow. And we want it to change this time the X. Right arrow would be +10. Left arrow would be -10. So let's give this a try. Up and down, side to side. And it all works. So that's how you would program something to move with the certain keys pressed. But maybe you also want it to program the space bar to stop the program completely. So you want to drag yet again another if-then and another sensing block in this new if-then statement, and select space, which is pre-selected for you. Should be pre-selected for you. And then under controls that we went over in an earlier video, we want to program it to stop all. You can also tell it to just stop the script and run the rest of the script, or another script in all the other sprites. Or in this sprite, you want it to stop everything else but this one. So let's run this. So we can run it, and if I press the space button here, I can no longer use the buttons because the program is no longer running. Until I start the program, I can then move the sprite around. So that's a little bit of sensing, but what about touching a different color? Let's create a new sprite. I'm actually going to just go ahead and duplicate this and change the color. So let's see here. Whoops. So this right here that you're seeing is how you would edit the sprite. So I can actually just change the color when you duplicate it, but I can create a new sprite and change the color of it. So you can create your own sprites. You can also right here you choose sprite from library. If you click on that, it's very slow on my computer. It's the only part of this that's going to be a little bit slower because it's loading a bunch of assets in the background. But you can select different sprites from here that will allow you to run within the program. So, or you can upload your own image that you may have taken or found, or you can use your webcam if you have it on your computer, or maybe you're doing it on a Windows tablet. You can use your camera on it to take a picture and use that as a sprite. That's a little bit besides this, though. We may go over that in a later video as well. So, using what we told this sprite, let's create a different part to this. And we also want this to continuously be active. Otherwise, if it's active for less than a second, it's not going to work because you're not going to be able to move sprite, the original sprite, over in less than 1 second. So let's drag an if-then statement, but this time instead of programming the keys, we're going to tell it touching color. So we're going to click on this little box right here, and the mouse is going to change, and we're going to select the color of the sprite. You can also use this block touching mouse pointer, or you can select, so sprite 3 is what we would use. So maybe you're not using color because maybe this color is also in other sprites that it will be touching, but you want it to be avoiding this one sprite over here. So maybe when it does that, we want it to stop the program. So let's run this. So I can move it around, and it's also moving that because I actually duplicated the coding. So in order to get rid of this, you can just drag it over to the block section and it will disappear. That's awesome. So our code is now running. I can move our little circle sprite around, and when it touches, it stopped the program. Just like we told it to do with the spacebar, it stops the program. But if you notice here, every time something happens, I'm dragging it back into to a corner or wherever. So let's change that. Let's start an event, and let's set the X and Y. So set X and set Y. So the X value of this sprite is 178, and the Y value is -77, just like it shows in this corner right here. So that's going to run at first. So if I have it over here, run the program, it's going to go back, but it's not going to stay there we don't want it to be forever active, because we just want it to set itself to that position at the beginning of the program. So now when we run the program, it will work the same. And when we run it again, it's going to set itself back up. So there are more things in here as well. From videos, you can set timers, which are going to be a little more complicated. You can change positions in different objects through an operator, which we will be going over in a later video as well. So this is the basics on sensing, programming your keyboard, and a little more on functionality. Most of this programming is going to be figuring out the functionality, which is mainly the basics and fundamentals of programming.